Guys, I'm Juan, the founder of the Park Database. I realized after I recorded this video, this interview with Gary Goddard, it was a bit of an abrupt intro into the whole thing. So let me just give you some background. We're talking here about Sanrio Puroland, which is basically the most expensive theme park on a per square foot basis ever constructed in history. It was first of the Hello Kitty theme parks. There's many of these around the world now. But this was the first. It opened in 1990, and Gary confirms it in the interview, but basically it cost $680 million in 1990 terms for 8,000 square meters, which is around 80,000 square feet. Compare this to Warner Brothers Abu Dhabi, which opened just a few years ago, and this is the biggest indoor theme park in the world. That budget was $1 billion for 150,000 square meters. Or 1.5 million square feet. Gary Goddard is one of the legendary designers in the theme park industry. He was the first to introduce 3D rides in Spider-Man the Ride, T2 3D. He's done everything from musicals to shows to retail entertainment centers. When we start off here, he's talking about Dentsu, which is a Japanese public relations firm, and through them is how he got introduced to Sanrio, because Dentsu was looking to basically make an animation out of Sam the Eagle, which was the mascot for the 1984 LA Olympics. So anyway, that's the background. Enjoy the interview. I hope you find it useful.
They had gotten the rights for Sam the Eagle, which the Disney company designed for the Olympics, the mascot. But Disney would not do any turnarounds for them for animation, nor would they provide a 3D maquette for them to make merchandise. He wondered if we could do that, and I said, "Yeah, we can do that." You know, because I work with Disney animators, and I actually had Glenn Keane. Glenn Keane was one of the top young animators at Disney at the time. And I got Glenn Keane to moonlight and to create a walk cycle in animation of Sam the Eagle, so they could have something to look at in Japan for how the character would move. And then I had one of our sculptors. I think it was Terry Cardinelli. She did the 3D sculpture maquette of Sam the Eagle for them to use for merchandising purposes. And then somehow through Dentsu, one of the guys there got our names, and then we got contacted from Sanrio in their recently opened LA office, who they were interested in having someone help interpret Hello Kitty for the American market for animation. That's really how it started. So let me mute this if I can. So we met with Sanrio's creative team, and they engaged us to do adaptations of Hello Kitty for what they might want to do for the American market. And that's how we really met Sanrio. And that got us into a few meetings with the chairman. And then the chairman found out we did theme parks. And he said, "Oh, I want to do a retail store on the Ginza. It's going to be 2 stories. We already have the property. And I need this to be so good that we could charge admission for people to come in." He says, "We're not going to charge admission, but it has to be that good. Can you do it?" I said, "Yeah, we can do that." So what wound up happening was we did the 2nd floor, and their internal Sanrio designers did the 1st floor. And when they opened, if you know retail, you know what I'm about to tell you is really, you know, the 2nd floor did all the business. Not only that, the way it was designed, there was an escalator up and down that was right by the exit to the 1st floor. The entrance was on this side, and the exit was on this side, and they put the escalator in over here. So the idea was people would come in here, go through the 1st floor, go up the 2nd floor, do the thing, and they could exit. So that was the idea. So what happened was within 3 or 4 months of opening, the Ginza store became a stop for the tour buses. The tour buses would unload, 60, 80 people at a time. And within a few months, they realized that everyone wanted to go to the 2nd floor. So they dropped them off at the exit, and they literally would avoid the 1st floor. They just go right up to the 2nd floor. They do their thing, and they come back down and get on their bus. So within the 1st year, Suji brought us back on and engaged us to redo the 1st floor. So the 1st floor would have as much impact as the 2nd floor. And the retail sales there were through the roof. So he was extremely happy. And he basically said, and then we did 1 or 2 other things, another store at a harbor area that they had outside of Tokyo. He said, well, this was all a test because I really want to do a theme park. And we engaged a Japanese architect firm, and I don't like what they're doing. And will you guys help us with this? We want you to do 3 attractions. So it started out with 3 attractions. And then within a matter of months after we presented our attractions, Suji said, we need to start over. You need to design the whole thing. So that is a very short version of how we got to where we got with Mr. Tsuji. And we always dealt with Tsuji, the founder of Sanrio, Tsuji-san. So then we started designing. This is where the story gets interesting. We immediately started designing what we were calling Hello Kitty Castle. We assumed Hello Kitty would be a major iconic element of this. And then at some point there, as we were doing rough concept stuff, he put his brother-in-law in charge, Yamaguchi, I think, Mr. Yamaguchi. He immediately said, no Hello Kitty. We're like, what? No Hello Kitty in the park. It's going to be, this is a new generation, new thing, Oh, that's another thing. Mr. Tsuji believed that every 30 years, if you had a company, you had to change the business. You had to grow the business. You had to reach out. And this was going to open in their 30th year.
Right.
So this was a big deal. So it became this was the original name they gave us, Sanrio Communication World. Okay. I said, okay, Sanrio. So what is it? Well, I want to be educational. I said, well, okay, we could put some education, but that's not a theme park's business. That's a museum's business, but we'll try and work some themes in. So we started going off in this kind of strange direction for a theme park. And we did a number of multiple exterior designs. We kept Hello Kitty in the first one or two, and then we were told, because everyone always says, how could you design a whole park and not have a Hello Kitty? This is what we're told to do. And I said to Yamaguchi one time, I said, Mr. Tsuji, is he aware of this Hello Kitty? Oh, yeah, don't worry. He knows everything. He knows, okay. So we went off in this direction, and we started developing a number of concepts. And then it was getting to be very close to the construction team. They started doing construction on the foundation because they knew what the property was. So they were digging they were like, well, we have to have a design that gets approved. And so we did another rapid fire series of exterior designs. And finally got one approved, the one that you see. That's the one that got built. That was the one that got approved all the way up to Tsuji-san. I was surprised that Tsuji didn't say, shouldn't there be a little more Hello Kitty? Shouldn't there be a little more Sanrio? Should there be, but at that point, it wasn't honest a question, and there was an intense schedule to meet. So then we were working on the attractions, and same thing, no Hello Kitty, which again surprised me. I was like, we're not going to have one attraction with Hello Kitty. No. Okay, Mr. Tsuji knows this. Yes, don't worry about it. He knows. Okay. So make a long story short, we went from doing 3 attractions to doing I think there are 9 attractions there. Of the 9 attractions, we did 7, and 2 stayed with Japanese local-based companies. The Mansion of Ghouls, which was a kind of a haunted thing that was done by a Japanese company, and one other one I can't remember now. There was a live. What we did come up with on the educational side, it's not very educational, but at least thematically that's where we came up with the idea of the discovery area, the music area, the future area. So we tried to create a series of themes that had built into them a different set of values, different set of content, future exploration, science, music, art, those kind of things. And there was a gigantic column in the middle that supports this huge indoor thing, right? There's a gigantic column. So that's when we came up with the wisdom tree. We needed something to not gigantic column right in the middle of the project. So we came up with the wisdom tree, and the wisdom tree we turned into a small little walkthrough attraction. So now we had a hub, you would come in. So the way it was designed, that's another thing. In terms of the design, you may not realize it, but it's 2 buildings because of Japanese codes, fire codes, all that stuff. So we had to have the entrance building, which had its own doors and fire doors and all that kind of stuff. And then we had the larger building, which was the basic area of all the attractions and everything. So we divided the entrance area into the retail store, 2 restaurants, things like that, that were things that were additional elements to the experience, not the actual entertainment experience. And then we made that big Sanrio, kind of rainbow that you went under into the escalators that took you to, you don't maybe realize it, but you're going from one building into another right there. So, and that gave us a great entrance to the big building. I mean, it's great. You come down that escalator and the whole world of the tree and everything is revealed to you, So, when we were doing this, I was just going to make a point. The pressure was on to get these. Oh, they kept awarding us more attractions, 5 attractions, 6 attractions, and then we had a big meeting to take Tsuji. This is like 9 months, a year later. Everything's in progress. Contracts are being made to ride companies. All been done by his brother-in-law. We're in a big meeting. There's the construction team, the architects. I'm presenting the overall concept, and I have my full-time interpreter next to me. And I finished the presentation, and there's this Japanese conversation going back between Tsuji and the son-in-law in the back, getting a little heated. Like, what are they saying? He's saying, "Where's Hello Kitty?" Basically, where the hell is Hello Kitty? And he's trying to explain that, along the way, we created 7 new characters also for him. This is a great story. So he, through the interpreter, he says, "We're going to have all new characters." And I said, "Okay, what are they going to be?" He says, "Well, you're going to design them." I said, "Okay, what are they going to be?" He says, "Well, you're going to laugh like I did, but you'll get immediately the Japanese, the misinterpretation through the interpreter." Well, he says, "They're characters, they are the janitors of the universe." I said, "Oh, the janitors?" And then I immediately went, "You mean like they purify the world? They purify you mean they're yeah?" He goes, yeah. But that was the initial interpretation. Janitors of the universe. They clean the universe. So I was like, okay. So we started playing around with a lot of different characters, and over a period of 3 months or so. And he didn't like any of them. And at first I thought he meant the Puros, like we would base some characters on the French Puro, right? No. And then he basically said they're ethereal. I said, "Do you mean they're like ghosts?" "No, not ghosts, not spirits, but." So eventually he came up with 2 guys there, and they described to me over a phone. We didn't have Zoom calls then. That the characters were going to be invisible. No one could see them because they live in your heart. I said, "Okay, but that's going to be really tough to merchandise." I said, "You're a merchandise company. I'm not sure what you make at that point if the character." I said, "You mean they're really invisible?" "They're invisible." He goes, "Yeah, you don't see them. You don't see anything." "No, you don't see anything." Yeah. Okay. And then finally, I just said, "I don't think that's going to work. You better run that one by Mr. Tsuji, And so then they came back and said, "Okay, make a character for each of the lands." Okay, so we had discovery, we had science, we had music, we had.
So are these characters now in the Sanrio universe in like, outside of the park?
I think they were at one point. I don't know if they are anymore. I know. They were at one point. They merchandise them, and now I don't know if they merchandise them outside of the actual theme park. Actually, I don't know that. I don't think I recall ever going into a. Well, I really wasn't going to the retail stores then. It was pretty much night and day on that project. The other interesting thing about that is you have to understand 2 things. First, we had signed on to basically deliver all of our attractions on a date, and the opening date was December 7th, not because of Pearl Harbor, because that happens to be coincidentally Mr. Tsuji's birthday. So. But we were already deep in. I said it's going to be almost impossible to meet that schedule. But our contract said, if your architects and your construction company deliver us dust-free conditions 6 months before opening, we will open, and we will gear everything to that. And I cautioned them. I did say, I said, I don't think you guys can get this done by that time. I mean, we experienced this a lot. "Oh, don't worry, we're Japanese. We don't understand our." I said, "Yeah, but it's not like building an office building. This is a very different animal." And but I will commit that if you will commit to have dust-free here, we will commit to opening the attraction on the date. And it was already a crazy schedule. It was crazy, but it was in the realm of doability if everything went perfect. Which on these projects, nothing ever was perfect. Okay. Yeah. And the Japanese architects and engineers, They had no idea what was ahead. They at that point, they didn't even know what rides. They visited a few theme parks and thought, oh, well, we know what this is. We know, a roller coaster, and we know this. And then the complication of doing an indoor attraction where everybody's on top of each other. It's not like a big park where you got that team there and that team there. Everyone's on top of each other. So the architect finally fesses up, and the construction manager, and they go to Sanrio and say, we're not going to make this date. Well, when are you going to make this date? Well, we're going to make this date here, 3 months before the opening date. So Sanrio comes to me and says, we have to do this. I said, there's no way that can be done in those months. And then I said, and then I talked to my guys. I said, well, everything, I'm going to take that back. All of our contracts call for shipping to arrive 6 months before. So everything will be there: lighting, audio, sound, animatronics. It'll all be there, ready to be installed. So we put a bunch of ifs together. If you take care of all the shipping and import, export, you get all the stuff into a warehouse so our guys can get in the warehouse and prep everything so it can go in. And then we'll have an open book with you. You can see everyone we hire, but we figure it out. We're going to have to do 3 shifts around the clock. We're going to have to turn 3 months into 6 months. So what we're going to do is we're going to hire basically 3 people for every job, every project manager, every art director, and we're going to have 8-hour shifts. And this guy, and we're going to assign him to the different attractions. And it wasn't just attractions at that point. We're responsible for everything now: the entire exterior design, the interiors, audio systems, lighting systems, everything. Working with Japanese companies, don't get me wrong, but we're selecting the equipment, we're approving the equipment, we're managing the whole process. Yeah. So Sanrio was the reason my company went from, I think, 16 or 18 people to over 280 people in the space of a year. It was crazy. So we did it. We did a deal, open book. They approved every single salary. People always go, you made too much money. I said, we didn't make as much as you think, because it was a ball breaker. This thing was, and when you commit to something like that, you commit. You think you've thought of everything. You haven't thought it. We made them responsible for all the travel. So we didn't have to get into that. Travel, hotels, that was their issue. We'll get the people. You get them housed. You make sure they can go back and forth. It was every 12 weeks back then, I think. Every 3 months you had to renew your visa. So it was a very complicated process. We had to hire 6 people just to run the human resources department, to handle all of the employees and their issues, and the travel issues and coordination issues and all that stuff.
So just to get a sense for this, how long was the entire process from when they engaged you to the open?
Oh, from the very beginning. It opened in 1990, right?
90, yeah.
And we started on that right after I finished directing Masters of the Universe, 87, in the summer. So probably mid 88, somewhere in there.
Wow. Okay. So
maybe early 88.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
so 2 years to turn around the whole thing, from the design to the construction and educating the local team. And wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the hidden thing is there. The first part was, when I say that, the first part was kind of easy. We were just developing, 3. Well, we developed the store. We did the store first, and this, and then we just developed 3 attractions. That was in our wheelhouse, no problem,
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, we need you to do 2 more attractions, 1 more track. Oh, can you help us? We're with the interiors now. Can you help us with? Can you help? One after another. I think we wound up having, if memory serves correct, we either had 13 or 17 contracts. It wasn't 1 contract. It was this series of contracts, right. And the biggest one being the 24-hour teams for roughly 3.5, 4 months. More like 4 months, because we had to have most of the team on we told them, you're gonna have to keep these people on for the opening first month or so, because we'll probably be operating everything until everything's finally, test and adjust. It was crazy. And there's a great story too, just to show you how much they didn't believe in us. Way back, we had to, what you always have to do with these projects. Early on, the architects need to know the program. They need to do estimated weight loads, estimated power loads, estimated special systems, water systems. All this. So we had to push our attraction concepts along very hard, and to try to come up with all these estimates. So we delivered the estimates. Unbeknownst to us, the electric guys thought we were out of our minds. That the amount of electricity that we had said we were going to need was crazy. So without telling us, what we needed would have required 3 generating stations. They installed 1. We didn't know this. Literally on opening day, the invited day of invited guests and stuff, not the real opening, but the invited guests, friends and family, let's test everything out. But there was press there. They open up, and 20 minutes in, I'm in the big square there by the tree. We have a brownout. Not a blackout, but all the lights just go like, and that hasn't happened. Like, okay, what's that? And everyone's on walkie-talkies, but English, Japanese. I got my guys. You can go to the place, go to the power room. So they got it back up. 20 minutes later, went down again. I said, and Mr. Suji's there. Everybody's there. Like, what's going on? And I'm trying to get answers. So we got answers. Finally, the power company had to admit that they thought our estimates were obviously amateurish and didn't know what we were doing. And they had elected to install what they thought so it needed. I'm sure they used the basic loads for a building of that size. They have no idea what kind of power all those show and ride systems and sound systems eat up, right?
Yeah.
So they had to implement a round-the-clock, the power people, system. What they realized, all of our different things had their own power meters in that control room.
Mm-hmm.
So they could monitor. So what was happening was whenever all of the shows and attractions would hit a moment where everything was drawing power in that moment, that was causing the brownout.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they stationed guys in there for the next 6 months until 2 more power stations could be built on site or near site, wherever they were. And they would watch the monitors. And whenever they were seeing something peak, they would lower the power over here somewhere where it didn't matter, so that could, and then there wouldn't be brownouts. So literally for the first 6 months, there were guys in rooms making sure that power from here would go to there, and from there would go to here. So, but anyway, so that's kind of the backstory on everything. And the reason that we had a great contract at the end was because of that 24-hour deal. But I want to be clear, it was open book. They approved every single hire. They knew exactly what our profit margin was. It was just like an engineering company. We're hiring this, we're billing you this.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And I have to ask, because the total budget attached to Puroland is always somewhere in the range of 500 million to $1 billion. Is that true? Like it would cost that much?
680 million. But wait for the punchline. Do you know how the steel contracts work in Japan?
No.
Well, a lot like New York. And if you know that what I'm saying, there's a certain kind of group that no one talks about that controls who gets the contracts.
Right.
And so of the $680 million, $330 million was in steel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then does that entire budget also include Harmonyland, which I believe is another park, or this was only for Puroland?
Harmonyland was in Oita. That's an outdoor park.
Okay.
And that one was done for $330 million, I believe.
Okay. And then also a substantial amount in steel, I'd imagine.
Not as much because it's an outdoor park, but yeah. But there was that was an interesting project. You've ever seen it? I mean, because you enter up here, and there's a little bit of land up here. So imagine the entrance to Disneyland up to Main Street, but not including Main Street, is a ledge that looks down around, I would say, 200 or 300 feet below the rest of the property. So everyone has to go down there and back up to this place. So it was interesting. And we made that more of a nature park because it was out in a park with trees. And a lot of trees went out. But we tried to keep as many of the trees as we could. And we tried to work the design around the trees and keep as many as we could. And but that one, Sanrio didn't operate. And unfortunately, I think the government took over operating it, which was the original deal. They were building it for the city of Oita, or the prefecture of Oita. And, that fell into disrepair pretty quick. It's not a park that I point to with pride at this moment. I can still point to a few elements that still look good, some of the stuff we designed, but as a park, it needs a real it needs 6 months of shutdown, and let's paint and let's clean and let's really fix this place up.
I see. Yeah.
But Puroland has weathered all the. Oh, that's the other thing. So in the middle of all this, the middle of all I just told you, that's when the Japanese economy hit the skids. And
right.
Tsuji was the only time I ever saw him kind of frantic was because they were in the middle of this project, of this massive $60 million project. Steel was already up, and that's when the economy went down. And he had to go to the banks and he had to make some deals for them to not shut it down. And kudos to him. Somehow he kept that going. He got it built.
In terms of Puroland, is its current state basically what it was when it opened, or has it changed over time? Like, was there an original version that?
It is the last time I was there, which was not that long ago, maybe 4 years ago, I think, right before the pandemic. Yeah, right before I was in another part of Japan for another project, and I said, well, I'm going to head over to. I want to go to Tokyo. I'd never been to Disney Seas, so I want to go check that out, and I want to go see what Puroland looks like. So the good news is they've kept it pristine. It's in great shape. And the answer to your question is essentially it's the same from the aesthetic point of view. All the same places we had theaters, same places we had shows. What has changed, which started within probably the year after it opened, is it's much more Hello Kitty now. It's much more what we would have designed had we not had different direction. But the basic attraction there. Oh, I didn't tell you this. So when Tsuji got upset, we were told to do whatever we could to add Hello Kitty in at the last minute. So we were able to do three things. I had worked with Larry Billman at Disney. Larry was the original writer and director of the original college Hoop-de-Doo show, and I was his co-director, fresh out of college. And I stayed on to do the professional casts 3 months later when the college kids went home, and I put all those shows in of Hoop-de-Doo. But Larry was a guy who did parades and stuff like that. So we looked at very quickly where could we quickly create some storage area for floats, mini floats that could fit on our street and stuff like that, not giant, Rose Parade floats. And we realized we had a ride path around the Wisdom Tree. People could watch a parade, right? We created a concept for what we call, the whole concept of Sanrio is gift giving, gifts. So we created this parade around the spirit of giving gifts. The inaugural parade was what do we call it? I can't remember, but I can look it up. But it was my idea. I said, let's do a thing. And so what we can do is we can't do a very long parade, but we can do a parade where 6 or 8 floats come in and park, and then something happens. So I had this idea that the Hello Kitty characters would be assigned to certain floats. I think we could fit either 6 or 8 floats. I can't remember. And each of them would carry a present on them, a big oversized present. And the box, first of all, the first transition would be we would go from regular lighting to everything being illuminated and lighted up. That'd be our first transition to music. So we'd have a couple beats of the show. And that, as the finale, all these present boxes will open up and things will come out. Characters will come out. Hello Kitty can come out, or characters, or they can come out and give gifts to the audience. That's a big thing with Sanrio giving things. And I think we did that, at least for that first year. We gave little things away to the kids and stuff. So I brought Larry Billman in. Tsuji loved that idea and said, okay, we got to do it. So we started designing this entire parade. And then Larry Billman came in to supervise. I introduced him to Sanrio. And by the way, he worked for them for years after. He would do all kinds. He did new parades and then we also proposed to take the Merhan Theater that we had built, a theater. I said, well, let's put in a Hello Kitty show. Let's have a Hello Kitty live show on that stage. So Tsuji loved all those ideas. But this was the big one. Literally a year out. I mean, this was some crazy time. He said he wanted a Hello Kitty ride. And I had one thing that I'd noticed. There was a second level, this balcony level. And I went with my guys and I walked it. And I walked the backstage area. And I said, well, it looks to me like we could put a small boat ride in here or an iron ride. I mean, a little omni mover or something. I said, it's not the greatest space in the world, but I mean, we could do it. We could add this in. And we have to move a few beams and we have to move a few things, but it could be done. We did some sketches and Tsuji said, do it. So that's this. Everyone says, why is that boat so small? Well, first of all, it was for moms and kids mainly. It wasn't for 400-pound men.
Right.
And secondly, that's all we could do. And I really felt it should be a boat ride. It fit the village more than having a train or something like that. We did think about a train.
Yeah.
So then we had the challenge of trying to create this ride, but even then, we were told, because Suji still wasn't involved day to day, to make it about the Puro characters, not the Hello Kitty characters. And I was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? This is like a boat ride. It should be no, because I think he was seeing himself as the next Suji, and he was going to create. I mean, I started realizing this is about him creating his characters and what he,
right,
and and he wasn't Suji. So anyway, so we did create the Puro boat ride, and that has become, of course, the Hello Kitty ride. It's a Hello Kitty ride, which it always should have been. I think they have put a live show in where the Discovery Theater is, which that's sad. That's another interesting thing. The son-in-law, the brother-in-law came to me one day with a cartoon, and it was a cartoon of Einstein and, I don't know, Da Vinci and someone else. It was a little, not an animated cartoon, a cartoon like in New Yorker magazine that he'd clipped out or something. And they were like dancing. It's just, they were dancing with something. He goes, "We want a show like this." So you want a show with great scientists or historical figures singing and dancing in a musical format? Yes. Animatronics? Yes. Okay. So that's how the whole Discovery Theater came, a time machine. And we had a little robot, and the little robot had a message for Japanese kids, which was subliminal, which is because he wants to learn how this little robot goes through time, because he wants to learn how he can be creative, how he can, and each of them gives their philosophy in a musical song. So we actually fulfilled this thing, but we were delivering a message to the kids that you don't have to, be part of a group that everyone has to think alike. Right. You can change, you can use your imagination and be creative, and you can do that. And here's ways to do it. Another cultural issue, which is really funny. Mr. Suji loved what he called fairyland. He loved fairyland. He loves gnomes and elves and princesses and stuff like that. So he wants to have a fairyland. So we created the Fairyland restaurant, which my partner, Tony Christopher, kind of headed up. And so when it came time to cast the show, what we had was a live prince, a live princess, and a live ogre. And then we had an animatronic tree, an animatronic owl, and an animatronic mountain that comes to life, I think. So it comes time to cast the show, and we're meeting with Sanrio, and I asked for a meeting with Suji because they said, we want you to cast an American princess and Caucasian princess and prince. I'm like, really? You sure you want to do that? Because it sends a kind of a strange message to all the kids there that if you want to be a prince or princess, you got to be Caucasian. I'm the one saying this, okay? And I said, I want to talk to Suji, so I got to meet with Suji. And Suji just laughed. Because he's a different generation. He just laughed. He said, no one cares about this stuff. And I said, well, no, it's subliminal. It's not, I'm not saying anyone's going to say anything, but don't you want your princess or prince to be Japanese? No. Has to be Caucasian. Has to be white. Okay. But I always found that disconcerting, because in this show, imagine the prince and the princess are white. The ogre is a Japanese actor. The little ogre. The mountain, the evil mountain, has a Japanese voice. I'm just thinking, all right, I'm a kid. I'm a Japanese kid. And all the bad guys are Japanese, and the two good guys, they're, and I know that we did this, post World War II, but we didn't know we were doing it. We're just making movies. The message we were sending back in those days is all the heroes, American, John Wayne and Cary Grant, but I don't think we were aware that the guys were just making movies at studios. But it was a different time, and I was certainly aware. But the management at Sanrio did not have an issue with that. So there it is. Go ahead.
What aside from those kind of cultural things, What was it like working in Japan during the late 80s? Because, it's just, it kind of looms large in my imagination as just like this insane time period when money was no object and, the economy was just booming and exploding. Did you encounter any of that? Like, aside from the crazy timelines and the budgets that, you were given, was there anything like that stands out to you?
Well,
Looking
I
at,
told all my friends back then was because they were reading all the headlines, Japan's going to buy America. They bought the Rockefeller Plaza. They bought the
right.
golf course in California. And I said, guys, I've been over there. I'm going to tell you, Americans work harder, smarter than the Japanese do. They stay up longer hours. I can tell you what happens with our group. With our group, well, I'll give you a great example. One of the guys, Mr. Sato, finally came to me and said, can you please ask your staff to leave the office by 10 o'clock? Well, why? We're getting stuff done. Because our staff won't leave. Oh, I didn't tell you this. So when they hired all those guys, they hired another person for almost every single person to shadow that person to learn what they do. Okay. So those people, when my guys were staying until midnight or 1 a.m., they had to stay. They would be falling asleep in the office, but they stayed. They were there. So finally, Sato said, "Can you?" And my guys were, now granted, I had 3 shifts, but they basically had, if not 3, 2. They had 2 shifts. So Sato said, "Can you please have your staff leave by 10 o'clock because our guys have to get on trains and go back, and they're tired and they have to be back in the morning." I said, "Yeah, whatever you want, but my guys." So I told my guys, leave the office, go down to a coffee shop, chill out for 30 minutes, and then go back into your work when no one's there, which is what we did. That's how we got the work done.
Yeah.
And what was I just going to say? Something else came up. You just asked me. Yeah, we were right in the thick of it when Time Magazine and Japan, Japan Inc. They're going to take over. They're going to blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then I knew enough about Japan. I used to tell my friends, here's what I know about Japan. The more I know about Japan, the less I know about Japan. Okay, because I now know a lot more, but it just opens up more questions, not more answers. But one of those examples is we're at a meeting with the guys from one of the big companies that was supplying us with, I don't know, it wasn't the steel guy, maybe electronics, maybe set construction, I don't know. So we're having a big dinner. I got like 8. They're hosting it, like 6 or 8 of my guys and 10 or 12 of their guys. Big long table. I'm four chairs away from the president or chairman, whatever it is. And everyone's drinking a little bit, right? I don't really drink, so I'm never really, I'll do 1 or 2 shots with them, and then the rest of them I'll just fake because I don't really drink. Drink red wine. That's about it. So at one point they're talking about Japan, Japan this, Japan that, I'm like, okay. And then, this guy says through his interpreter, one thing about Japan, the chairman of the company only makes 3 times what the lowest employee makes. But in America, your chairman make 10 or 20 or 30%, but our chairman, he makes da. I went, with all due respect, how does your chairman afford a $12 million yacht that he owns? Because I've been on it. Silence, Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, you can tell me that he's only making 3 times your lowest on the books. He's making a lot more money somewhere, maybe stock, maybe, I don't know what, but
Yeah.
I don't think you're as far off as you think you are from American executives. You guys just do it in a different way.
Yeah.
So they were shocked. But I learned a lot about the Japanese culture. And, the Japanese culture, what you see in front, it has nothing to do with what's really going on.
How it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
But we got along with them all really well. Suji would take me and my core executives out to, at that time, we'd go to the most expensive Japanese restaurants in the city. I mean, I think those dinners cost him $20,000, $30,000, $1,000 a person.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't eat sushi. They knew that, and I didn't drink. So the funny thing is, whenever I went out with the Sanrio execs, they always knew there were shot glasses in front of all my guys, but in front of me were 2 bottles of Coca-Cola. They called me the Coca-Cola kid. So